Mavis expected to see her dorm at the end of the golf course. But the golf course extended as far as the eye could see. There was a field full of men, women, and children sitting on the grass, counting their fingers. Mavis tried to weave through the crowd in the direction of her dorm. She walked past a boy of her age who asked her, "What year was the Federal Reserve Bank founded?" When she couldn't answer, the boy asked her, "What's the current U.S. trade deficit?" She turned away, and the woman next to her asked, "What is the BPM tempo of Allegro agitato?" A little girl asked her, "What is the tallest building in the world?" She recognized the little girl as her past self and greeted her with a smile. The little girl asked, "How many repeats does this song have before the coda?" A little boy who looked like her brother asked her, "What's the fastest plane made by McDonnell Douglas?" A man who looked like her father asked, "How many transistors are on this chip?" There were many clocks around her on the grass, ticking like time bombs. Mavis thought she heard the deafening sound of mechanized looms, machines counting bills, spinning, spinning, spinning like wheels, weaving straw into gold, keyboards clicking, voices yelling the prices of stocks. There were men and women around her in business attire gesturing numbers because their voices were not heard. Mavis's breath became labored. She wanted to return to her dorm, but there was counting all around her in various languages. Above the din of numbers, she heard the sound of marching and began to panic. The rhythmic marching became closer and closer. She needed to escape this field of numbers. She abandoned the idea of returning to her dorm and began to look for the shortest way out. As Mavis ran, she felt the ground rise above her to form a hill. At the top, a lion paced with a regal air, surveying his empire. The crowd had dispersed to the bottom of the hill, and the marching seemed to have faded. Mavis was halfway up the hill, running towards the lion, at first because he was in her path of escape. She then wanted to touch the lion to see if he was real. As she was running, she noticed she was not on a natural hill, but a grassy slope with finite edges, as if it were a plane floating in a three-dimensional space. The terrain was shapely as a shoulder blade. The lion didn't seem to notice Mavis's presence. He was pacing, as a lion passant in heraldry, regarding the field of numbers at the foot of the hill. Shipping containers of uniformed dimensions stacked high as skyscrapers in a thronged city. Ships navigating by sweeping radars. Airplanes in a queue, taking off and landing by precise algorithms. Trains running on intersecting tracks timed to avoid collision. The lion oversaw the crafts of transportation, the movement of invisible goods by a multitude of cogs in a machine of monumental proportions. There was no telling what happened to the goods once they reached their destinations. The lion wore a necklace, not a collar, but an ornamental chain with a pendant watch. There was a piece of quartz in the watch, oscillating quietly. As Mavis made her way towards the lion, dozens of uniformed students appeared behind her, overtook her, and blocked her way. They were writing frantically in their notebooks. Mavis saw her former self, about a year younger, in the crowd. She was careful not to approach herself. She asked another student, "What are you doing?" "We're taking an exam," one of them replied. Where are we? Asked Mavis. We're in the sine function of the imaginary portion of a complex number, a plus bi. Remind me, what is I? I is the square root of -1. Why are we here? Asked Mavis. How is our presence related to I? I don't know why you're here. I will be leaving shortly. When I pass all my exams, I'll find a job in the field of numbers, said the student. What will you do? Transformation will be my work. What will you transform? It doesn't matter. I can only tell you I will work with care and precision. Mavis turned to another student and asked, why are you here? I'm learning about the wave function of a photon. What will you do with that knowledge? Haven't you wondered what light is made of and how it moves? You see it every day. You can't see without it. But do you understand it? Is it corpuscular? Is it a wave? You should start a dialogue with light, not with me. The student turned around and resumed the work of writing formulas in Greek symbols. A breeze swept through the hill in pulses. There was no message in the breeze, but the students disappeared. Their uniforms remained strewn on the grass. By the time Mavis reached the top of the hill, there was no lion, only a sphinx perfectly poised. Mavis's footsteps aroused the sphinx, who kept his composure, but shifted his eyes to look at Mavis without turning his head. He asked, what is the most fissile isotope of uranium? Why are you asking me this question? Mavis sensed danger, but she looked at the Sphinx in the eye. Answer my question. The Sphinx was incensed. I am the only one allowed to ask questions here. You are an imaginary creature, said Mavis. You have no power over me. But I am part real. I frequent company boardrooms, the White House, Buckingham Palace, and other places of power. The Prince of Wales listens to me, said the Sphinx, whose breasts now appeared larger, more womanlike. I am also part real, said Mavis. I've spoken to the Prince of Wales. He is no more real than you. Precisely, said the Sphinx, lifting her head slightly. She continued in a supercilious tone, even presidents are part imaginary. Don't underestimate the power I wield. But if I don't believe in you, your power will be diminished, said Mavis. Answer my question. What is the most fissile isotope of uranium? Repeated the Sphinx. As she spoke, she turned her head ever so slightly. So Mavis noticed the pile of human bones behind her, like a medical student's field trip. Femur bones, ribs, skulls, tibias, and fibulas. Why do you ask? Said Mavis. A child chasing a red balloon happened to pass by. Why? Why? She echoed. The balloon bobbed and drifted just out of her reach as she ran down the hill shouting, why? Why? She ran past a warren of geophysicists in a lively conversation on an outcropping they were surveying for natural gas deposits. Two of them paused for a moment to look at the child and followed her gaze to the balloon she was chasing. When they resumed their work again, they were not quite sure what they were doing before the interruption. Why are we working on such a sunny day? Said the geophysicist with a white cap, who'd rather be playing tennis. Another geophysicist said, why are we working? Why are we studying such a small patch of rock, looking up at the sky. The sky was larger than the rock they had been studying, the sun more generous. "Why aren't we studying the sun?" said the geophysicist with a white cap. The group began a discussion on how to use a photovoltaic cell to generate alternating current through an inverter. They were well aware of their location in a sine function of the imaginary part of a complex number. The balloon drifted past a field of brokers in business suits, using hand signals to buy and sell stocks. The child cut through the middle of the options pit, following the balloon, yelling, "Why, why?" The disruption caused a pause in the transactions. The brokers, who could not see or hear the girl, saw the balloon and wondered why there was a pause in trading activity. A number of brokers on the other side of the field started making their way to the balloon, causing the ground under them to fluctuate. In the ensuing panic, some brokers began to price volatility at a premium. Others held fast, predicting not only the balloon itself, but the memory and effects of the balloon would soon pass. Others doubted the existence of the balloon itself. Conversations ensued about imaginary entities, including the imaginary component of the Fourier sine function used in options pricing. There was no dispute about the practical benefits of the formula in calculating cases of discontinuous payoffs, but no one quite understood the nature of the imaginary number. If I times I equals -1, what is I? I seemed to require a suspension of disbelief, or at the very least, the deferral of thought. This fissure in the theoretical foundation of options pricing led to doubts about the authority of the exchange itself. When the brokers resumed their shouts and signals, their rhythm was slower initially, but more chaotic. The child's refrain could be heard in the din, "Why, why?" The child's question followed the balloon through an empty high-rise. A middle-aged man who looked like Prakash was walking with an assistant, a fresh college graduate, from room to room on the top floor, stopping from time to time to work on a small laptop. He was making three-dimensional drawings of the building, which was to be a hotel, so he could outfit the interior. He happened to look out the window as the balloon drifted by. When he and his assistant walked closer to the window, they heard the cry, "Why, why?" and looked down at the child. The man smiled and told his assistant, "When I was a teenager, I had a friend. She was almost my girlfriend, who asked a lot of questions. What are you going to do when you graduate from college? Where will you live? What do you think is going to happen to Hong Kong? But so many students have died in Beijing. Why do you think things will be the same in Hong Kong?" "What do you think she's doing now?" asked his assistant. "I don't know. I can see her doing more meaningful work," said the man who looked like Prakash. His assistant laughed. "What do you think we're doing here? Outfitting hotels? Aren't we doing substantive work? Our work is tangible, the furnishing and decoration of hotels. But is it substantive? This hotel is going to be worth 3 or 4 times as much in a few years. But really, who cares? The engineering of the hotel is real. This concrete has been fracture and fatigue tested," said the assistant, who had taken a course or two in material science. He kicked the walls a few times. "Can't argue with sinusoidal load testing." "Does India really need another hotel?" said the man who looked like Prakash. "I'm just talking to myself," he added quickly. His assistant met his eyes and was silent. The interior designer, returning from lunch, interjected, "To paraphrase Tagore, the kind of beauty India needs is reality seen with the eyes of love." The middle-aged man heaved a sigh. "I need to take a walk." He averted his face from the other two. and headed down the concrete stairs with no railing. From the top of the hill, Mavis watched the child disrupt the rhythm of work in the field of numbers. First, the workers who saw and heard the child slowed down. Then they began to talk to the people around them, who also slowed down and began talking to others around them, and so on. Mavis smiled at the chain reaction and the slowing and cessation of work, like a breeze sweeping through the field of numbers. She said to the Sphinx, "Why is the most thistle word in the English language?" The Sphinx promptly resumed the form of a lion and commanded, "Speak to me in numbers. This is your last chance. What is the most fissile isotope of uranium?" Mavis looked to the other side of the field of numbers. A truck had made its way to a military base. The truck appeared just like any other truck on a highway, gas station, or port. But when the soldiers began unloading the metal boxes from the truck, she saw that the tops of the boxes were painted yellow with 3 black sectors of a circle in the middle. Radioactivity. Mavis shuddered. The boxes could contain depleted uranium penetrator rounds. She glared at the lion, as if he were responsible for what was to happen when these boxes reached another country, a city full of men, women, and children. When she thought of all the wars fought under his imperial gaze, she began to see his symbolic existence as an affront to justice. "Why should I speak to you at all?" asked Mavis. "You exist only if I recognize you." The lion turned his head away from Mavis and began to walk slowly in an arc. He bore down on his muscular haunches with the power of a machine and the supple grace of a wild animal. He leapt forward in long strides and pounced. Mavis felt a sharp pain on her throat and heard a thud. A unicorn had placed himself between her and the lion, colliding with the lion chest to chest. She had not seen or heard his approach, yet his body was hefty as the lion's, and the impact of the collision unmistakable. Mavis placed her hand on her throat. There was only a dribble of blood on her fingers, when there could have been a rush. The unicorn lay on top of the lion on the grass. Together they formed a violent, exquisite corpse, 2-headed, limbs entangled. The unicorn was the first to disengage himself from the lion. He flexed his long legs out of their awkward bend, lifted his sculptured torso, and arched his neck towards the sky. He trotted towards Mavis and laid himself tenderly at her feet. The lion hoisted himself up and fell upon the unicorn's back. The unicorn turned to meet the lion with his horn. Mavis saw she could no longer ignore the existence of the lion, but she could meet him with the power of another beast. As she watched the 2 beasts fight, she backed away, still facing them, one cautious step at a time. When the grassy slope hid her from their view, she turned around and ran down to the field of numbers. As she ran, she could hear the unicorn's snorts, the lion's snarls, and the welter of hooves and paws. She wanted to know if the unicorn was safe, but she didn't look back. She ran as if the lion were in hot pursuit, with the field of numbers folding in upon them. Students, traders with their hand signals, geophysicists with and without caps, hotel decorators, truck drivers, train conductors, pilots, and soldiers, all tumbling forward. She fled as if she were riding on the back of a unicorn. As she approached the bottom of the hill, she heard a rhythmic clapping in front of her. She saw 2 women clapping a pair of bamboo poles together. She was so tired She wanted to throw herself on the grass, but she was captivated by the clapping. So when the couple motioned her to dance, she began placing her left foot in and out, in and out, in and out, and then her right foot in and out, in and out, in and out. Left, right, out, right, left, out, left, right, out, right, left, out. Both feet in, both feet out, both feet in, around and out, around and out. She had to dance, as if dance was all she could do to stay safe. 2 other women came and added another pair of bamboo poles perpendicular to the ones she was dancing to. The 4 poles now formed a cross with a square in the middle. Mavis skipped around the cross, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left. Mavis stepped into the center of the cross, hesitated for a fraction of a second, and felt the 4 poles slam against her ankle. She yelped in pain and rolled on the grass. The women now arranged the 4 poles in parallel. Thud, thud, clap, thud, thud, clap. She wanted to get up immediately, but the pain in her ankle was electric. The smell of burning grass grew stronger. She responded not to the fear of burning, but to the authority of the clapping poles, as she summoned all her muscle and sinew to stand up again and place her entire self in her body. She began again with her foot, left foot in and out, then her right foot in, out, both feet in, both feet out. Waited out, left, right, out, right, left, out, around and out, twirling her way out of the tyranny of numbers. Mavis felt unusually calm, as if a rainbow had swept across her body. She came upon a river and lay down beside it, spent. There was an edge to the rush of the wind, above the susurration of reeds and the running water. She closed her eyes and rested. Thank you.